Leaving Lanyu, I had a little bit of a plan, laid out roughly. I'd booked a decent middle-grade hotel in Kaohsiung for 4 nights. In a way, this was unfortunate because since I'd already paid, I was definitely going to make it there because while I'm not traveling strictly as a budget traveler any longer, I'm not a wealthy one either. I don't pinch pennies, but I don't waste them, or at least I try not to if I can help it. So it was unfortunate because during my time on the ferry from Lanyu, I realized that the southern tip of Taiwan was worth considerably more time than I had given it. Kenting is the beach surf portion of Taiwan, and I simply didn't have time to explore it because I had a room booked in advance. And this is a great example of why it's better not to plan, and also better to plan, neither of which I'd done. I hadn't planned, and I hadn't not planned. It's actually quite a distance from Hangchun, where the ferry landed, which is close to the southern tip of Taiwan, to Kaohsiung, which was where I was staying. And since I hadn't planned out how to make the trip, it wasn't clear at all how to make the trip. So there must have been a bus, but somehow I missed it as I walked out of the ferry terminal and I went to what I thought was the nearest bus stop where the bus is headed north. And in that process, I somehow missed an entire huge bus station. But a bus came and I got on. It took me to a small city terminal where I asked the information desk, who didn't speak English, but I didn't speak Chinese either. So I asked him how to get to Kaohsiung, and he told me I would take the bus to Fangliao and I could catch the train from there. It was a longish bus ride, so I fell asleep. And I woke with the driver saying that we were stopped at Fangshan. My ears picked up at the Fang part. I got off the bus and I followed the signs to the train station. It was all uphill, several miles. I was dragging my suitcase behind me, a wheelie bag. It was hot, and even without dragging the wheelie bag, I would have been sweating, but I was sweating a lot. I was soaked. I got to the station, and then I realized that I'd gotten off the bus at the wrong station. I'd gone to the wrong train station. The train wouldn't come here for 4 more hours, and there was no station attendant, no bathroom, barely any shade, no vending machines or stores, and I had no choice. I hiked back down the mountain. Shan, by the way, means mountain, Fang Shan. I needed to go to Feng Liao. So another bus wouldn't come for hours, so I stuck my thumb out, and a friendly Taiwanese couple gave me a ride to where I should have taken the bus, which was Feng Liao. Then I caught the train to Kaohsiung, and after marveling at the beauty of the Kaohsiung train station, which truly was beautiful, I walked about 1.5 miles over level ground, thankfully, to my hotel. And yes, I could have taken taxis, but if I'm honest, I like the workouts of walking and getting exercise from my mistakes. And I also like the familiarity that a walk from a station to a hotel or a hostel gives me. So when I travel, I usually walk 10 to 20 miles every day, and I love it. Kaohsiung is a cool city. There's plenty of bikes. There's an easy transport system. The Warehouse 2 area is sort of artist enclave, and the town's reinventing itself from a heavy industrial port to an arts destination. And it's a little bit manufactured in that sense on the try too hard things, sort of like American cities that have done the same thing, but still it's pretty cool. And CG Island is a neat beach town with a city place within a city place. So I met up with a great group of expats while I was there in Kaohsiung, and the locals that I met were super. So through this Facebook group, I had a fun evening of intellectual discussion, and I also really like Kaohsiung's libraries and bookstores and the art everywhere. It was good times there. My time there was good. I liked the city. I liked the CG Island Sunset Beach Bar, which was a chill place to just have a drink. And one problem, though, it was a beautiful beach that had signs up that said no swimming. I just don't understand that. So I had about a week before my next scheduled stay, which was 6 days in a couch surfer's empty house in Taichung. That's the central west coast city of Taiwan. So I mapped out a few plans, like kind of a little bit of mapping, a little bit of planning. I'd finish my stay in Kaohsiung, then I'd go to Tainan for 2 nights, and then I'd go to Chiayi for 2 nights, doing a day trip to Alishan, and then I'd go to Taichung, where I would just relax and chill out for a few days, write, make videos, and maybe I'd make some excursions to other areas. And that was really something I was looking forward to. I was going to buy some groceries, and I was going to do some of my own cooking, which I was also very much looking forward to. Now, a side note on Taiwanese food. A lot of Taiwanese food is very, very good, but I think that food bloggers have gone way too far in the direction of gushing over it. I've met many travelers who came expecting the food here to be on the same level as someplace like Thailand or Japan or Malaysia. And frankly, while it can be very good food and some dishes hit it out of the park, my experience and that of most of the travelers that I've met who shared their experience honestly with me is that in general, it's too much fried food. It's slightly bland, and it just doesn't quite hit the mark of a European, North American, or Australian palate. I think what has happened is that the food bloggers know that if they gush over things, it makes more of a viral video content, and as a result, they've set impossibly high expectations that almost can't be met. That being said, there are some Taiwanese dishes that meet or exceed the expectations on every level, but it's not every item, and it's not the night market fare food most of the time. So, back to the travel, I loved Tainan. The hostel was good, and I enjoyed just exploring down random alleyways. I met some cool people there, and there's a very Japanese vibe to Tainan, and it sits well with me. The art museums were unpretentious, they were interesting, and the small cafes and bars were super cool. I met an English busker who was playing one of those flying saucer-looking instruments, and we had a generally enjoyable conversation, although it became really clear that his politics were too right and mine were far too left for us to be friends. So we parted ways before that could blossom into any sort of disagreement. This world is far too polarized for me to engage in conversations like that while I travel, so I'm just not going to do it. And I think I could spend considerable time in Tainan, though. I made a few friends while I was there, and I tried some delicious food, and I really liked the vibe. Now, on the other hand, I was really looking forward to Chiayi since I'd read quite a bit about it, what it has to offer, but arriving there after Tainan, I found it reminded me a little too much of Redding, California. Redding is an agricultural gateway to the Siskiyou Mountains and the wonders of Mount Shasta, Lake Shasta, Mount Lassen. The Sacramento River runs through Redding, and it's beautiful, but it's where I graduated from high school, and socially, intellectually, mentality-wise, it's exactly where I don't want to live. It's hot, it's landlocked, and it's not in the mountains. And like Redding, Chiayi was like this, and there seemed to be an outsized number of homeless as well in Chiayi. So I dropped my bag, and I saw that I could catch a bus to Alishan. So I went for it. My plan was to go up, do some light hiking, and then take the bus back down, maybe get a meal. It was about 1 p.m. I figured I would have time, and this is where planning would have been good. The bus was 3 hours, beautiful scenery. On the way up, I thought it might be nice to stay the night, but there were no hotels available, at least none that were less than $500 per night. And sadly, when the bus arrived at the visitor center, that's the point that I realized that the bus I'd ridden up was also the last bus of the day going down. So I had about 30 minutes total at Alishan. It wasn't even enough to have a meal in the town on the other side of the national park entrance. I had no choice but to catch the bus back down because there was nowhere that I could stay. So Chiayi, I don't really have much to say about it. Like Redding, I'm sure there's people who love it a lot, but it's just not a place that I got. Maybe in the future I'll go back and see something there. Maybe I'll go back to Redding and see something there, but it's not in my plans. So the train to Taichung was lovely, and my host's house wasn't far from the station. I arrived in the district of Shalu. Her house was huge. She was in France, traveling around the world for months and months, and she decided to just let couch surfers stay in her place while she was away, with nobody there. She hid the keys, and finding it was easy, finding the keys was easy. It was just a bit too isolated, and my vision of being able to shop and fill a fridge and cook and relax was sort of shattered by mosquitoes in the house, a little bit of a creepy vibe of staying in someone's abandoned house, which is what it felt like, which was enhanced by the piles of her stuff that were there. And I'm not sure if she left it like that or if various couch surfers or guests had rifled through her stuff, but that's what it sort of felt like. And the refrigerators were unplugged. I didn't want to plug them in and make sure they worked and all that stuff. Counters were piled high with dishes and utilities or utensils, things like that. And the beds sort of had a look that, well, it kind of looked like a squat or a flop house, the beds situation. And there was no Wi-Fi. That was the deal killer. My data card had a bad connection too, so maybe it would have been super cool, but it just wasn't for me. So I left, I thanked her, and I booked a cheap hostel in a more central area, which I was glad to do. Now, the owner of the house and I, we'd become friends through texting and social media along the way, so it wasn't a wasted trip at all, and I'm sure that we'll meet. She's super cool, and I look forward to meeting her somewhere someday, maybe collaborating with her in an art sense, but the hostel was cheap. It was $6 a night, so that was great too. It had a bar downstairs, sat right next to the very cool Yizong Street Market, which is more of a locals night market kind of place, and was central to getting to museums, to bookstores, and other interesting sites. So I made an effort while I was there to to meet every traveler in that hostel, which wasn't easy because the hostel itself had kind of a down and out in London feel to it. My first night, I was in a room with an obvious long-term resident who had the kind of filthy feet that you see on beggars and just laid in his coffin-like bunk all day, seemingly all the time. Now, he must have gotten up to smoke from time to time because the heavy smell of cigarettes and unwashed clothing just filled that room. It stank. I didn't make an effort to get to know him because the vibe was deep, dark depression and hopelessness. And the next day I insisted on a different room. And this room also had a long-term guest in it. He was obviously working hard, and his socks that he put right next to the air conditioner made the entire room smell like stale feet, like stinky tofu, but worse. But you know what? It was better than the other room. And because there was a window there, I opened the window and it didn't have that aura of suicide the other room had. So no big deal. There was no kitchen, no fridge, but there was a lounge area that was open for guests from 8 a.m. to 11, but it was deathly quiet. Now, I made a few friends in there. There was a nice Japanese girl who I invited to come on a free walking tour that I had signed up for. She came with me. We had fun. We ate noodles afterwards. We explored a little bit in the markets. Company was good. I met a Kiwi guy who's a few years older than me, and we became really good friends. We drank a few beers in the Central Market Street, and we swapped some stories and locations. And we're kind of leading lives that aren't too different from each other, but maybe going in different directions. Fun travel friendships anyway, and they were born there. Mostly, though, the lounge was just filled with silent, AirPod-wearing, phone-staring people. A lot of them were local Taiwanese, or I assume that they were because I didn't talk with them, so I don't really know. You can't talk with someone who's staring at their phone with AirPods in. Now, the thing is about Taichung, I really enjoyed the museums and restaurants there. As a city, it reminded me a lot more of Sacramento than of Redding, which is a good thing. Now, I'm sure it has many charms that I didn't discover on this trip, but I was pleased to try the original bubble tea there, to visit the National Museum of Comics, the Museum of Literature, the Museum of Science and Technology, and I made a few friends in Taichung, so despite the retirement homeless shelter vibe of the hostel, it was definitely a good stay. From there, I took a bus to Sun Moon Lake, and I booked into a hostel that, of course, I had to book into. It was called the Dreamy Nomads Hostel. The bus ride up was really nice. It was a little bit tricky to find the bus station since it wasn't at the main Taichung station, but the hostel was easy to get to. It had a great rooftop chill area that encouraged people to interact, had knowledgeable staff that set the right tone for the stay, and it was filled with a variety of travelers from many places and no long-term guests. That's important. This wasn't a cheap flop house for working Taiwanese. It was a traveler's hostel. So the French owner is married to a Taiwanese woman, and they have set the vibe correctly there. It's something that's often missed in other Taiwan hostels that I've stayed in. They offered to help with activities. They offered a simple free breakfast, just toast with spreads and juice and coffee. I made a new friend there, a Turkish man who owns a shop in one of the villages, and he and I sat and talked story about life in Taiwan, about our lives in Istanbul over Turkish coffee, and I was really looking forward to swimming in the lake and renting a bicycle the next day to ride around the lake and enjoy the water and the scenery. And I thought, this is a place that I could spend serious time. There's no swimming in the lake. It's sacred. In my opinion, that's sacrilege. I can't stay in a place like that. The bike ride was nice. I made quite a few friends in the hostel, and that night we had a nice group dinner. The place we went to at 6 p.m. was already sold out of food, and everything else closes at 8, so we found pizza and pasta, which was fine. I met 2 separate groups of Aussie sisters there, one from Melbourne and one from Sydney, and I made other friends from Europe, the Philippines, Taiwan. One friend was traveling in the same direction as me. Another friend was going a different direction, and we all exchanged notes, and in some way we all stayed connected. So on the friend-making scale, this was a very successful stay. On the scenery scale, it was beautiful. On the swimming scale, it was a complete and total failure.
Ni hao, Chun Shui Tang. That's right across the street. That's where the original bubble tea came from, and I thought, what the heck? I've made bubble tea. I drank it in Hawaii. I drank it in Japan. My daughter and I made it at home. Ours was pretty good, but I thought, why not try the original? So this is it, right across the street. They serve food and stuff too, but I just wanted the bubble tea. So let's see how it is. They say in 1983 it started because he was selling hot tea. He like made a tea house in a very particular way, and he wasn't doing well selling hot tea when it's hot. So he started experimenting with selling cold tea because he'd seen iced coffee in Japan. And one day he just decided to dump some tapioca balls into it, and it took off. And now, you know, bubble tea is everywhere. So let's have a sip. It tastes just like bubble tea. So the funny thing is, the bubble tea that we made at home, of course, was more to my palate. This is 30% sugar with milk and the tapioca balls, but we would make it with just more to my palate taste. So I liked that better, but this is the original. So I suppose this is the original recipe. Maybe the original recipe had more sugar in it.
Number 2050, number 2050.
It's pretty good. I recommend it because why not? It's fun to come try things like that. But don't drink bubble tea every day, and don't get it with 100% sugar or whatever, because it'll make you fat drinking it every day. Don't do it. Okay, so this is a very cool book, and it's filled with answers. It's like Magic 8 Ball. So, should I go to Taichung today? Maybe. Should I check out of this hotel now? Don't be too demanding. I'm not. It's not very good answers. Let's see. Should I go catch a bus now? Okay, so it's very non-definitive answers.
I suppose we would never reach a consensus. Will we? Perhaps, but at least let the audience execute.
At first glance, I thought this was just a wooden model, but it is so much more. So this is a reproduction of technology from the Song Dynasty. It's an ancillary and celestial predictor that basically keeps track of celestial objects accurately and tells time. And in a sense, it's a water clock, but it's so much more than that. It's actually like one of the most amazing pieces of ancient technology that I've ever come across. And this is the kind of stuff that I generally seek out and like.
it's pretty amazing that they were able to reconstruct it. So this is from about 800 years before we have anything really resembling Western civilization. So 1,000 years earlier, you know, of course it is a reproduction, so there's that, but pretty awesome. The Oceania Polynesian display here at the Taiwan Museum of Science and Technology is truly astounding. It's a multi-dimensional, like, I don't know, I'll just show you. It's astounding. You know, it's, and of course, someplace like the Bishop Museum or the Vatican has a larger and more extensive collection, but the way that the curators have put this together, the way that it's all been displayed is nothing short of mind-blowing. And, you know, from this bit to the map that shows all the dispersal of the Austronesian people, you know, from 4000 BC, starting out around Taiwan and making their ways all throughout the Pacific Ocean. And you see there's our little Hawaiian islands. And it's just pretty astounding. Like the whole thing here is kind of mind-blowing. And, you know, I had to find a moment when there weren't a bunch of kids really enjoying it, because it's awesome to see the kids in here enjoying it. Also, the older Taiwanese people, you know, I wanted to be able to explain this without too much loud Mandarin distracting from it. So it's cool to find this moment. And, you know, of course, the explanations are mostly in Chinese, but there are translations available. There's translation apps and stuff. But what's impressive is just the pure scope and the way that the curators have actually like laid it all out and gone into such detail to create such an immersive Polynesian experience. And I guess I should just say oceanic experience, you know, and that continues here. Inside, you've got more maps. There's a video that plays here, looking at different Polynesian cultures and societies. And then we get into the weapons and also the sculptures and the art and this kind of thing. Like a lot of this stuff, you know, I have. Not this particular stuff, but like some hook figures and things like that from Papua New Guinea. You know, primitive tools, agricultural tools. A lot of this stuff is just in sort of my wheelhouse as, you know, the guy who I am. So it's nice to see this Papua New Guinea stuff being displayed and given the like attention that it deserves. You know, these adzes. And it's funny, at Satoshi Manor, I've actually found quite a few old stone adzes and stone axes, stone implements and tools that have been, you know, sitting and were used in the backyard back when it was, you know, wild agricultural land of some sort. So it's an amazingly immersive display, and there's just a lot here, including arrows, shields, swords, you know, different types of Polynesian weapons, and even kapa, you know, which is bark cloth. It's made from different things in different places, but this is a really interesting kapa. Design is something I haven't seen before. It's a cool design. It's like Keith Haring. Really like it. I don't know where this one is from. Waiku and Oro, but Probably Papua New Guinea designs. And we get into the canoes and the ornamentation. The docents here are really like, they walk back and forth. Okay, so again, into shields and masks. I've had a few of these, sold quite a few of these. Some of them probably shouldn't have been sold or shouldn't have been bought in the first place, but it's hard to say. That lady's is just getting her laps in. Oh, this is pretty cool. This cowrie shelf. Anyway, it's an amazing display. I'll go up one more bit here.
好久不见的，这个是暴龙。那很多人有看过的，我们就先不要你先看小小的啊，小暴龙身上长什么？啊？长什么？看看。拿举手，小暴龙身上长什么？长毛。好，答对了。长秃毛来，这它是毛对机械。再来看这只。
短短的200万年，就已经忙着破坏自己的生存环境了。
看它的骨头，然后今天我们学会它的骨头，最后再看一个骨头，这样子，这样对。